The big thing that all of you should do is figure out what is it that I believe about the world and my space that everybody else does not. Everyone else talks about virality and views, and I talk about trust. Wildly different. And I think that's why we're having a little bit of success with the content.
Welcome to the Venue RX. On this show, we document and share best practices around owning, operating, and managing world-class wedding venues.
What is up, everyone? Jonathan here with the Venue RX, and on this show, we are all about making a change for the better in your business. Today, we have a pretty legendary show for you. We have someone who is not in the wedding space, and I'm so thrilled to be having this conversation with him. I've been prepping for this for a while, and so thankful that he decided to come on the show. But we're going to be talking about branding. We're going to be talking about marketing. We're going to be talking about all things media today. Caleb Ralston, thank you so much for being on the show.
Jonathan, thanks for having me on, dude. I appreciate it.
Okay, so I intentionally didn't give you a big intro because we're going to go through it right now. But for everyone listening, if you're watching on YouTube, if you don't know Caleb Ralston, you need to first. He is the founder of Ralston, his own media company that he has just made incredible waves with. And we're going to have links to all this stuff in the description. But I just want to say, man, just personal thanks. That marketing basically playbook and deck that you put out all about how to build brand, how to do marketing. Like there's worksheets in there. I mean, this is like a masterclass. And speaking of that, he literally put out over 6-hour video, right? On YouTube about how to do this stuff. I mean, and it's for free. So I've already sent it to my team. You guys are going to want to check out what he's doing. It's incredible what he's doing. And he's worked with some of the biggest names in marketing. So we could spend probably half the show just talking about all of the incredible people that you've worked with. But could you, Caleb, just kind of give us a very short intro on why media for you? Like, why did you choose media as your way to impact people's lives?
Yeah, I mean, I'll make it quick because it won't be a super useful answer for the audience. But basically, I was that typical kid that you saw all the time with a camera. I remember my parents gave me, they were called Digital Blue. They were these little camcorders that came with an editing software when I was like 7 or 8 years old. And my sister and I would make silly little skits in the backyard. And as soon as YouTube was a thing, me and my buddies were making videos and posting them. I remember when I was in high school, my mentor, which I am unbelievably lucky to have had this man as a mentor and live in the same small town as him, Sean Cannell, who's really big on YouTube. They dominate with Think Media. He was the head of video production at my local church. And so I started interning with him, and he gave me this book by this crazy wild character from Belarus named Gary Vaynerchuk. And the book is called Crush It. And I read that and I was like, holy shit, I think he is right. I think people could make money talking about Smurfs on YouTube. And if they could make money talking about Smurfs, I could probably make money talking about bodybuilding and powerlifting. And that was the niche and the industry that I was in at the time. And so I just got started there, and I was a chronically terrible student. And so I pretty much, as soon as I uploaded my first like real YouTube video, I was like, cool, I'm never paying attention in school ever again. And this is what I'm doing. I'm all in. I have to make this work.
Do you feel like, for anyone out there listening, if they have a kid, or maybe they were that person and they're maybe in their 20s and they're trying to figure out, they're on YouTube right now figuring this out, and they found our channel, like, paying attention to the things that you are good at versus trying to fix all the things that you're not good at is a path towards success. I feel like we beat ourselves up a lot. So I'm curious on your take on that before we jump into everything else.
Yeah, I think I got fortunate that I had people in my life that were reinforcing that idea, that concept. So it definitely wasn't something that I created on my own or inherently knew, but it was just, rather than trying to fix, I mean, dude, I just joked about it actually with a client this morning. I used to try and sneak a paper over my report card every quarter when I would give it to my mom so that she would sign it, thinking it was like a field trip or something. Because I had D's and F's every quarter. And rather than try and fix that, I think I just kept putting all my time towards video. Now, I don't think it was actually, I'm gonna give you not a bullshit answer. I'm gonna give you a real answer.
Yeah.
I think it's because I fucking hated school and I loved making the video content. I just was super lazy with school, and I thought maybe I'm a lazy person. And then I started pursuing video and realized I'm very much not lazy. I would work literally 14, 15, 16-hour days in high school on it. But yeah, I think doubling down on what you're good at, and the real point here that's useful for anybody who has a business or anything like that is I think that you just supplement the areas of deficit, right? So like for me, I'm a pretty organized creative, way more organized than your average creative. So I can hold my own in building a team, standing up a team without bringing in a project manager for a while. But eventually my skill set caps out there and I'm not going to be able to go any further. I could work on improving that, but I don't think that that's a good use of my time or efforts. I'd rather just hire a project manager and continue doubling down on what I'm good at. So I think for those that are far in their career, I think you want to hire around your deficits. And for those that are early on, I think it is really wise to continue to lean into what you're good at. I will add a caveat, which is when I first got a real big boy job and had to send emails, I was pretty pissed about how much I didn't pay attention in English class. It took me 5 times as long to write an email to the CEO than it should have. But other than that, I think it ended up working out.
I love it. I definitely say so. And it's crazy now, even with AI and everything that's happening, like that may not be as much of a struggle for for this next generation.
Totally. It's like the calculator bullshit, like memorizing how to do like division. It's like, oh,
Texas
shit.
Instruments,
I have my phone
baby.
with me all the time.
Yeah, exactly. You'll never, it's not like you're going to have a calculator with you all the time. Funny story. Something that's really interesting to me about your journey is the time you spent with Pure Wow. And actually my sons, I was watching a podcast that you did. No, I was actually watching something that you did kind of direct to camera. And you were sharing about your trajectory and how you turned down some time to spend with Team Gary after hours just so you could double down into the work with Pure Wow, and how that kind of like informed your growth within Team Gary. First thought that was really inspiring. My sons both loved it. I was like, you guys, this is the recipe right here, you know? So thank you for that. But on that, your experience with Pure Wow, it's primarily a women focused brand, correct?
Yes.
So a lot of times when it comes to like branding and marketing and things like that, you want to be relevant to your audience. And, you know, I think that that's something that's very cool and very neat about your journey, because your personal brand, you know, wearing the Harley shirt, which I love. I just sold my Lowrider ST, which makes me sad inside. I know, very sad. We could talk motorcycles, but beard, motorcycles, tattoos, like your personal brand, what you give off is different than, you know, maybe the target avatar for Pure Wow. And so I'm curious how you, as a creative, and there's value here for the audience, how someone as a maybe venue owner or business owner who may not exactly speak personally to their demographic, how can they get on the same page and really understand the messaging and how they need to communicate to break through?
Well, for one, I would say I do, actually. So what I'm trying to get better and better about is bringing out my kind of gregarious side, my more in touch with my feminine side version of me. Like, I was the kid growing up that my mom had a bunch of hairstylist magazines, and I loved going through them. Like, I love shopping. When my girlfriend and I go shopping, I pick out better shit for her than she picks out for herself. Like, I love that shit. And so actually a lot of the Pure Wow thing was like, I would actually argue it would have made more sense with the way that I was at the time, especially to go to like a Pop Sugar or a Refinery 29, which was demoed more, if you're not familiar with those. Yeah. Those are more demoed towards younger women, right? That was more like millennial. Again, at the time, Gen Z was still like, you know, in junior high. And so that was more of a millennial target market. The reason why I went and found serious interest in Pure Wow, one, obviously Gary owned it, so I wanted to be closer to the sun. But two, I had the opportunity to choose. Basically, they gave me the option between Vayner Talent, which was like Team Gary, but for external clients, or Pure Wow. And I chose Pure Wow because I have prided myself on always being somebody who tries new industries, understands new spaces, and leads with my curiosity. Like, I make my decisions based on my curiosity. And so I'm also not necessarily the least strategic person. I think pretty strategically. And one of the biggest decision makers in purchases for CPG goods in America is women in the Midwest, 40 to 55-year-old. That was our demo at Pure Wow. So I figured if I learn how to communicate effectively to this demographic, I will learn how to communicate effectively to the decision makers for purchases in America, which would also be a pretty good thing to have. So yeah, I also came from a small town where I worked in a software company with a bunch of bros. And the idea of working in an environment that was like predominantly female was very interesting. I had never up to this point had a female boss before. This was going to be the first time that I had that. And I wanted to know what that was like. And it was the greatest thing in the world for me. Like there was so many big learnings that I got from it and just good experience to have.
There's such a clear parallel here for me and why I wanted to touch on it, because your experience there and like how you went about that process is what I'm interested in. Because, with our audience, if you talk to venue owners, even if you talk to just wedding industry pros in general, we're constantly all getting older, right? But our demographic is more or less staying the same age. And so as we get older and more mature in business, it's that same process that you went through of like, you need to understand what's important to that 40 to 50-year-old woman in the Midwest. That's exactly what. So could you kind of just break that down a little bit? Like, how did you pull that back a little bit and make sure that you knew what was going on in that space?
I think the first thing that I did is I started looking at influencers that were creating content, like individuals, not other publishers, but influencers that were making content geared towards that demographic. And what were they making? What were they talking about? And what was resonating most with their audience? I think you quickly start to learn a lot about an audience just off of that. So for the individuals listening or watching this that are trying to maybe you're like me, and I know for me, I've managed a lot of Gen Z employees and creatives, and the amount of lingo that they use that I'm like, I have no idea what you're saying is absurd. But if you're wanting to stay relevant or aware of like what the upcoming generation is finding interesting or engaging with, like all you got to do is look at who's creating for those people and what are they doing? What's the terminology they're using? What are the formats that they're using, right? Like, what are the things that they're super interested in, right? And so I think it's really just doing market research and just seeing like, and again, I want to be very clear here. I would encourage you, don't look at publishers or companies that are trying to reach these individuals. Look at the individual creators that are actually getting through and connecting to them. Because the worst thing in the world that I hear a lot of companies, like, you get a publisher. Pure Wow never did this, but let's just use them as an example. If Pure Wow were to be like, what is Pop Sugar doing? What is, what is that? Home Life or Good Life or whatever that big magazine is. What are they doing? Like, that would be the worst thing in the world, right? Because it's like looking at another irrelevant source to try and find your information from. You want to look at what people are actually resonating with. So I think that's a big thing. And I think another thing is like asking people, like actually interacting with customers and talking to them and really understanding, not pretending like we know, and doing that like on an ongoing basis. Like everything's changing on a monthly basis as far as like what people prefer, trends, aesthetic trends for weddings, for example. Like that shit's changing all the time, right? Like right now, it's ending, but right now, like one of the popular things to do at your wedding is to do that, oh God, I'm going to fuck this up. That kid that was in the front of the boat with the people rowing and he's doing the whole dancing thing. That's a huge thing that people are doing at their weddings right now, right? Like there's constantly trends within the world. And so I think making sure that you have your finger on the pulse is a really important thing, and never thinking that like what you're doing right now will continue working 8 months from now. Always assuming that like every 6 months you're going to need a pivot.
And that's exciting because you always have something to learn, and you can go into any conversation like hungry for, insight. Hey, what are you doing that's working? But Caleb, I want to highlight something, kind of just double click on something you just said that I think is so relevant for the audience. You said, look at the actors in the space, look at the influencers, look at the people that are there, not look at the other brands. And I think a lot of times venue owners and operators in this space will go, and I've been guilty of this before. You'll go to your competitor's website, your other venue's website, they're in the same journey that you are. And you're trying to figure out, what are they doing? And you're trying to look, but instead of that, the focus needs to be on the consumer. So that was brilliant that you just said that. I think a lot of people could glean from that.
Let's go further on that. Here's an exercise for you to stand out in any saturated market. It's very simple. Do not let the simplicity negate the fact that it is very impactful. It's what I call the 2-column approach. We may have talked about this at some point, but you're going to make 2 columns. On the left side, you're going to identify 2 different things. 1, all the things that your competitors are saying or doing in their content that you disagree with or hate. And hate could mean you find cringe. You're like, oh, it's like the real estate agent that is, doing the dancing and pointing at like copy it like, ugh, like, do you, boo-boo. If that's what you're into, by all means. But for me, fuck no. Heck no. But what you want to do is you want to identify all of those things. And then what are the things that their customers are complaining about? What are the typical complaints in this industry? Now, when I said that, I guarantee 3 things came to your mind, and everyone listening immediately thought of 3 things because you're actually in it. Sorry, man, this is really hard. Yeah. But like you're really in it. So you know the problems and complaints people have. Write those all down in the left column. And then it gets really complicated in the right column. What you're going to do is you're going to take all the things in the left and you're going to write out the exact opposite. And that's what you're going to do and speak about. This is how you will stand out. Because to your point, in a world where people do this in content too, they look at the other content creators in their industry and they're like, what are they doing? What's working for them? I'm going to duplicate that in my own way. And what do you look like? Them. What do you not do? Stand out. It's pointless. It's like, cool, you're making content and getting views. But guess what you're not doing? Differentiating yourself. Nobody gives a rip about you. Nobody remembers you. They're only consuming the content because it's being served in their feed. But the moment that it's no longer being served in their feed because the algorithm changes, they're not searching you out. Okay. Yeah. And it's the same with the website for your example. Like if I will tell you this, I almost guarantee if I went to 30 different venue websites right now, I bet a lot of them look the same. And the one that doesn't look the same and does something different is the only one that I'll walk away from this exercise remembering.
So true.
It's like, it's the classic trope when they zig, you zag, whatever the hell version you want to say. But like, don't do the same shit as everybody else. It's why you mentioned the course at the top. It's why I dropped the course. In a world where all my competitors and counterparts, if you want to call them that, are making the majority of their income in their agency, not off of the delivery of what they're doing, off of a digital product that they're selling. Cool. What am I going to do? Well, I'm going to look at it and say, I think I could make a better course on brand. And instead of charging for it, I'm going to put it out for free. And it's no surprise that it stood out and is doing really well because it is literally the exact opposite of what everybody else does.
Yeah. And worst case scenario, you just set yourself apart. Like in my mind, you're a part of it. You're separated out. Even if someone doesn't watch the whole thing, even if someone doesn't make it all the way through your different website, even if someone doesn't, like, you're so separated from someone in people's minds. And the big thing with marketing is like the differentiation. So I love that. Just to be helpful for the audience, when we're talking brand, we're talking marketing, we're talking advertising, for someone who's not really familiar with those terms, could you, just as a marketing expert, like, what's your view on how we define those 3 different terms?
Yeah. So I believe that branding is just the pairing of things. I think that good branding is an intentional pairing of relevant things done consistently. And brand is the byproduct. Brand is when your audience inherently associates you and the thing that you're intentionally pairing yourself with, or at least good brand. Okay. So the idea being the classic example that I give and everybody gives, but there's a slight nuance that I add to it, which is Nike and Michael Jordan. Nike was a running company. They were not known in basketball, right? And so they're entering a new market. What did they do? They intentionally paired themselves with greatness personified in basketball, Michael Jordan. Now, the key is if he wore Nikes 1, 2, 3, even 20 games, we would have forgotten about it. It's the fact that he wore those Nikes every freaking night. Every game, he wore Nikes. Okay. And so branding, a lot of people think they're like, I don't want to keep saying the same thing over and over and over again. It's like, no, that's actually exactly what you want to do. You want to wear the Nikes every game, not just a couple of games. And it's what you consistently pair yourself with. That is the lens in which your audience will view you through. That's all brand is. I believe that marketing is, I actually have never sat down to define marketing. I don't touch like what we would call traditional marketing nearly as much, especially not publicly. With some of our clients, I have a lot of experience in paid, or a decent amount, I should say. I wouldn't call myself top 1% by any means, but I'd say I'm in the top 10. That's why I don't really talk about it that publicly. So I've never actually defined marketing. So I won't give you some bullshit answer, but what I will say is I believe that marketing's job is to convert on the goodwill built and the trust, really, not goodwill, it's trust, built by a strong brand. And I believe that it goes in order of operations of product, brand, marketing, sales. You know, I think it may have been devolved. Somebody said like you do sales because you're bad at marketing, and you do marketing because you're bad at product. I would say you do brand because you need help with your product, and you do marketing because you don't know brand, and you do sales because you don't know marketing. So I kind of think of it that way, but no, I don't have a definition for marketing, actually.
That's, I love that you touched on that though, because the advertising, like the paid side of it, obviously you're kind of forcing attention to your product. You'll have to spend more money, right? And in our framework with running venues, we intentionally front load ad spend, because if we're doing our jobs right, we should be building brand, we should be building word of mouth. And so we should be able to spend less and less and less money as we make more and more money, because so that is exactly what you're talking about. And I think
good brand lowers CAC.
Yes, 100%, 100%. And CAC is something that people are not tracking as much in our industry, unfortunately. The brilliant thing about what you've done, what I've seen Gary Vaynerchuk do, Alex Hormozy, a lot of these guys, they built their brand. So Alex is going through it right now with the book launch, right? Like he's building up all of this like brand around him that even if, and he wouldn't do this, but he's kind of positioned himself as like the guy who is going to spend all these hours on the book, on the product. So you have this high level of trust that he's going to deliver an incredible thing. And then because of that brand that he has, there's all this other stuff sitting on it. That's just from my point of view. I know you're way more in the sauce on it than I am, but I love that. Let's pivot here just a little bit. We talked earlier on kind of being authentic to who you are. Someone listening to this, maybe they're like, oh my gosh, what did you just say about CAC? And what are we talking about with this marketing and branding stuff? And they don't feel technologically savvy enough to jump on this, but they know they need to build a team. You've built plenty of teams inside this world. For someone who's just starting out, are there some go-to must-have roles that you would advise people to hire if they want to put someone in charge of just the marketing and the branding that they're doing?
I'm going to give you two answers. I'm going to give you the let's do it right now answer and the going pro answer. The let's do it right now is, and this what I'm about to say applies to every like GoPro, and let's start right now kind of thing. You don't hire roles to fill roles. You hire roles to solve problems. And problems are your bottleneck or constraint in your process. And so for every single human watching or listening, and the aliens too, you are going to hire your first hire based on whatever your biggest bottleneck or constraint in your process is. So let's say you're a solo creator and you have no problem coming up with ideas. You're like, I got an Apple Notes thing that's like got like 50 different video ideas. Cool. That's not the constraint. And I sit down and I just set up my camera on my tripod and I film, no problem. I don't need any help there. That's not a constraint. You're filming all the ideas, but you have like 10 videos in the backlog on the editing. What are we going to hire? An editor. 100%. And then the beautiful thing about business and operations is as soon as you solve that bottleneck and constraint, guess what happens? Another one appears. It's amazing. And so that is how you build your team. Now, the going pro version, actually, let me take a step back. Where what I just said goes wrong, in where a lot of the clients that we work with, we're helping fix this. A lot of them are like really, really big personal brands that you all admire. And they built their team fast because they have a bias towards speed and action, which is awesome. And it's why they're where they're at. But the problem is they built their team in silos. Let me get this YouTube editing function going. All right, let's get some short form content churned up. Oh, let's hire like a copywriter to do LinkedIn. And what you have is 3 different operations that are not in tandem, not serving one purpose and not communicating with each other. So the going pro version is you hire the leader first. This is more expensive, or it's either more expensive on money or time. You either pay more to get somebody who is experienced to do this and they know what to do from the get, they're going to cost more. Or it's more expensive on time. You get somebody who's a little bit greener and you're going to hire, mentors, agencies, things like that to teach them so that they can grow, but it'll take them longer to get to the point that you need. Depending on your budget, that's going to decide what you're going to go for there. If you hire the leader first, though, they should be thinking through the lens of, I'm building this as one cohesive media team. And so instead of a bunch of little things in silo that don't communicate with each other or benefit from each other, everything is operating together and you get way more efficiencies on your output because of that. And so the going pro version is doing what I did day one of my business. I hired a content director. That was my first hire. And I mean, literally like my first month, my first calls with clients was in January. And my first hire was in January. I made a huge bet. And I'm not talking somebody cheap either. Like this isn't, some $60,000 a year employee. Like this is my first year in business. And I made a 6-figure bet on a content director from the very get-go because I know how this rolls and I wanted to eat my own dog food.
Yeah.
Right. And so I'm doing that because I know we will expand. We'll hire editors. We'll hire designers. We'll hire copywriters. And I want Trevor, my content director, to build that out rather than having a bunch of things operating in silo.
That makes a lot of sense for the GoPro model also, because you likely have someone who's very good at appearing on camera and then they're behind the scenes, and it also almost makes more problems for them and takes them away because now operationally you've got them like handling each one of these different departments, trying to like fuse everything together versus you bought the fuse together person already. I love that. Yeah. That makes so much sense. A quick tip on that, because I know as you've built these teams and as you've been responsible for that, you've worked with some really high level talent. You understand what high level talent looks like. For anyone who is struggling either to find high level talent or feels like maybe the standard that they have in their mind outpaces anything that they've seen so far, could you comment on maybe some ways to like figure out if, you're hiring the right person early on, like any telltale signs that you've seen of like, this person's really going to do well in the business?
The first thing I would say is just like in dating, however good you are is what you will get. It's the same with hiring, meaning somebody with a small opportunity is never going to get access to the top 1% talent. You have to have you have to know what opportunity are you providing, and that is going to be the cap on who you can bring in. Like A players that are like highly ambitious will not go work for an organization that has a small opportunity for them. They're not going to do it, even for more money. Like money is not the thing for the right person. The right person, like my last in-house role, I didn't get excited about it because of the money. It definitely wasn't that. It was because I was going to build something. Like that's what I was amped about. I got to build. And so that's the first thing that I would say. But things that you want to look out for is the number one trait you want is curiosity. You want this person to be curious about everything. Curious, why did this video work? Why did this video not work? Why are we all of a sudden getting 3 times the amount of subscribers every week than we were last month? What's going on there? Why, I saw you changed the copy on the landing page for this venue. Why'd you do that? That is going to be somebody who's going to produce the best content and develop the best systems for you. Okay. Now, the 2.0 is ideally they're not only curious, but they're interested in your industry and subject matter. Okay. If they are not interested in it, you will be pulling teeth. You will be pulling teeth to get them to come up with ideas and stuff like that, because like they're not into it. Right. Now, there are individuals like myself who are unique, meaning I have general curiosity. I'm curious about everything. I don't know poop about aerospace. Nut. I don't know anything about it. But if you put me in that world, I am going to get curious. I'll learn one thing, which I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And I'll start pulling on the thread, right? Some people are not that way. And they're only interested and curious around one or two subject matters. If you're going for that person, they need to be interested in your subject matter, or you need the generally curious person. Those are really big ones. The other one, and it feels painfully obvious, and I like hate saying it, but I have to keep saying it because of the amount of people I've talked to that have not done this. When you hire this role, have them show, I'm going to swear on this one because I need it to land home. Have them show fucking receipts, people. Show receipts. Don't hire somebody who makes great videos. That's so pointless. Have them show you actual growth on a real channel. Like, have they grown an Instagram account? Have they grown a TikTok one? Have they grown a YouTube channel? Have they grown LinkedIn? If they haven't, I don't care how good they are at selling you on their creative abilities. They haven't done what you need them to do. So why would you believe that they could do it for you?
That's incredible advice. We have a full-time video editor here. We've got, it's a small team here that produces this, but one thing I noticed in working with a couple people leading up to finding this person was, and Enrique, you're going to obviously edit this, was finding that person was difficult because it was like, oh, I've done this video. I've made this beautiful video. I made this beautiful video. But then you'd hire them and they'd spend hours and hours and hours trying to create like this visual masterpiece. And it's like, we're trying to create, like, there's a volume play that's needed here. And it was almost insulting to them because they were like, well, this is my art, but I wasn't looking for that. I wasn't necessarily looking to do that. I wasn't a film studio, So it was a misalignment. And I learned that. So I love that you said that.
To hit on that, one, Enrique, you sound like a savage. Love it. Two, what you're defining is somebody who makes art versus content.
Yeah.
And you need to make sure that you're hiring somebody that makes content, not art. They can make art on their side, in their own time. That's great. But art can sell. I'm not saying art can't sell, but the odds that art will convert and sell are way lower. Because you're making it, when it's art, you're making it for you. When it's content, you're making it for them. Basic delineation right there. Very simple, but very profound. Art, most of the time, doesn't hit. We have the Lana Del Rey's, the Ethel Caines, like these amazing artists that I love. But for every one of them, there are hundreds of thousands of artists, like a lot of my friends coming up, that are still the artists that nobody listens to because they're making it for them. And what they're making for them didn't resonate with a lot of people. Versus content is when you're reverse engineering the preferences and needs of the audience and you're making with them in mind. I would argue in doing that, you increase the odds of its effectiveness. Effectiveness being conversion.
You guys, if there's nothing else you heard from this episode, that right there, Caleb, was gold. Because I think people really, really struggle understanding intent of, I was going to say intent of content, but intent of where that missile is going here. Is it going to create something of beauty, or is it to create something that's educational or effective in a certain category? I love that. I want to, oh man, there's so much we could talk about. I have a couple more quick questions, but I have to ask you about this. I'm seeing right now, just point in time, a mix between art and content coming from creators like Stephen Bartlett with the Diary of the CEO, coming from guys like, the other gentleman from England, who's made some like workout content with Alex. Newtonic.
Yeah, just devilishly handsome.
Devilishly handsome. That guy. Yeah. Chris Williams. There we go. So, but the YouTube videos that he creates, they are beautiful as well. And you do a lot of the storytelling that you do. You've got a couple of really cool videos where you're like motorcycle transitions, filming, like some really cool storytelling stuff layered on top of content. So do you see that emerging as more of a consistent thing? Like that almost seems to be a blend of what you just talked about. There is a high level of content delivery because the information is really valuable and I'm liking it and everyone's liking it, but it's also art because you're doing this whole storytelling thing, beautiful bokeh and certain shots, like whatever. What do you think about that?
I think that I can't predict or speak to the minds of other people. But what I would say is my bet, and I don't know him. I've never spoken to him. Well, I have once, but I don't know him super well. Stephen Bartlett probably is making everything with the audience in mind. I just, knowing how their operation goes, they're making shit reverse engineering the preferences of the audience. They just know that maybe the audience does prefer a nicer set. Chris Williamson. Yes, I think that he has done an incredible job of standing out with his wrapping paper, as I call it. Yeah. His wrapping paper is phenomenal. But I would argue his North Star is the information being shared still for the audience, right? If it was visuals only, if it was purely Dean, his creative director, is a fucking genius and creative wizard. So I can only imagine if they were only making it for them, I bet it would look even different. But I think what they're doing is they're striking a balance. And so it's not a binary thing. It's not art or content. It's content as your intention and wrapping it with art, right? That's how I think of it, which is like when we're making a video, we're trying to film it in cool settings. We're trying to film it in a slightly more aesthetically pleasing way than maybe some other videos where it's more like, you know, there's like a fake plant in the background, a shelf, a red and a blue light, like everybody on YouTube does.
Like the hair light going on.
Right. Yeah. We're trying to stand out a little bit, right? But I will promise you, Jonathan, never is our number one thing our framing, our composition. That all comes second to the information that we're sharing. And my bet is Chris Williamson spends more energy and effort. And I don't know. So I don't want to speak for him. But my bet is he puts more effort into the prep of the questions and knowing the guest than he puts into the set. Now, granted, he's got a team, so he can delegate that. And I think they do a phenomenal job. But if he had no substance to what he was saying, if he didn't have good guests on, if he didn't ask good questions and draw out shit from his guests that nobody else, no other podcast they do, bring that out, it wouldn't matter how beautiful his set was.
Yeah. What you just said made me think of something else earlier in this episode here. I think there's a bit of a competitive moat also that they're building around themselves in the delivery because it's easier
Who can do that?
Yeah. And they can do it. So it's like Steven, like even just a table and even just whatever, there's like a competitive moat that comes because anyone can't just like create the content that they create. And that's a way for them to stand out. Just like you stood out with the 6-hour video and the free course.
I was just going to say.
Yes.
I was just going to say that was the whole reason why I did it.
Yes.
Like I wanted to help people and I wanted it to be a brand positioning thing. Show me another person in this space who's going to sit down, not for 6 hours, 14 hours talking about this and then trim it down almost a third and then release it for free. Like, so yes, I completely agree.
Yeah. But that's, I almost feel like that's the whole idea behind evergreen content. And the sad part is you creating such a piece of work like that means that you've actually invested the time to have that thing pay off and add value. But a lot of people just throw stuff on an evergreen platform that doesn't have evergreen value. So
a lot of people Oh man, I could go on for hours about this. A lot of people make a 5 steps to blank video that they spent 20 to 30 minutes in pre-production writing.
Yeah.
And it's a 15-minute long video. It doesn't do well. And they're like, it's great content. I don't understand why. It's like, you didn't scratch the surface, brother. Like this is what everybody says. Let's hammer this real quick. The big thing that all of you should do is figure out what is it that I believe about the world and my space that everybody else does not. And when you figure that out, then you start to understand how to actually go deep with your audience. This is the whole reason why people are going to actually care about your shit, not because of your packaging, not your hooks, none of that shit. I'll give you 2 examples. Gary came onto the scene in an era, and this is going to be, I think you told me the age demo. So actually everyone's going to remember this. Remember the days where like advertising, when you thought of that, you didn't think of like Facebook ads and Instagram ads. You thought of TV and newspaper and billboards and mailers like crazy. Well, Gary came onto the scene when that was what all Fortune 500s were spending all of their dollars on. And he was like, hey guys, there's this crazy thing called Facebook. It's emerging right now. I think it's going to be very serious. And he came into the world of marketing and advertising saying exactly the opposite, something wildly different than what everybody else in the space was saying. And it's no surprise that he blew up. Another great example is Cody Sanchez. Like 2020, 2021, we were at peak of everyone believing that wealth was generated off of being a tech bro founder. You got to be the founder of the next Airbnb of blank, the Uber of blank, the Facebook of blank. And Cody was like, yeah, there's actually another way. You could like own laundromats or be $1 million plumber. Like there's a lot of different ways through boring businesses to get rich. And it's no surprise she blew up because she was saying something very contrarian, but she wasn't saying it. It wasn't controversy for controversy's sake. She believed it at her core. Yeah. And I think, nobody's watching my content because of how I look, and nobody's watching it because of how I speak. I truly believe it's because I have a fundamentally different view of how to build a personal brand. Everyone else talks about virality and views, and I talk about trust. Wildly different. And I think that's why we're having a little bit of success with the content. And so like everything we've talked about is in second order to what we just said. If you can figure out what you believe about the world and your industry that is different than your counterparts, well, then your job becomes to scream it to wear the Nikes every night, to pair yourself over and over with that idea.
I'm so glad you leaned in on this. And we have to hammer this home and make this specific for my venue audience. If you own a venue right now and you are either bringing a team in, like my team, to run your space for you, or you're running it and your only metric is dollars in the door, even if it is dollars in the door, you've got to build trust. And you're not going to build trust through fancy marketing campaigns, throwing tons of money at ads. You're not going to do it like that. You're going to do it by doing exactly what Caleb just said, which is figuring out what you believe about the world that everyone else doesn't, doing that 2-column approach that Caleb, you just said, and or letting your team do it for you, and creating that and presenting that, because then your clients who really, really love you and are obsessed with what you do and are going to shout your name from the mountaintops and actually make it cheaper in the future, those folks will show up for you. Exactly what you're saying. And Caleb, I just want to make that very specific to the venue audience, because that 1,000,000 times is what we need.
Yeah. And like, I don't know the venue world super well, so I'm going to give an example that's probably just like completely irrelevant, but take the principle of what I'm saying here. Let's say you have a wedding venue and you believe that hospitality in the restaurant and hotel industries are amazing. But when it comes to like commercial venues, hospitality is terrible. If somebody books a typical wedding venue, it's not like they're treated all that well. It's like, here's the keys, here's the times when you can come in, blah, blah, blah. And you believe that it should be done differently. Well, then it literally might just be you hammering home the fact that every single person that books your venue for a wedding, you greet them with warm cookies, or you find out their favorite beverage. So when they come by to tour, you greet them with their favorite beverage. Whatever your version of this is, it's doing that. It's figuring that out and then doing it and talking about the fact that you do it over and over and over so that eventually your audience starts to associate you with hospitality.
Full circle moment. I love that. I love that. Let's touch really quick on platforms. We've been talking about a bunch of different things for this space, uniquely. And actually, just side note on this, I love what you're doing and how you're expanding your audience. Like you've worked, as far as I can tell, on personal brands, like two major personal brands that I know of, where I was first introduced to you with the Hermosis and with Gary Vaynerchuk. And it seems like from your content, you're expanding because you want to do whatever you want, whenever you want, with whoever you want. And you want to be able to know. So as you expand and as you're looking at CPG and some of these different things, are there go-to places that you recommend people put their attention or their focus when it comes to marketing platforms, say? Do you have like a set, like if I'm doing a personal brand, it's Instagram, Facebook, YouTube,
No.
but if it's unpack that a little bit.
It's figuring out where your audience is spending the most amount of time.
Okay.
And your ideal audience, AKA your ideal customer, right? And people always follow up with me on that of like, Caleb, well, how do I figure that out? And I tell them, it's the same way that I figure out in every new city that I'm in where the local metal bar is. I find somebody who looks like they know and I ask them. Like very basic. Like I just start asking and finding. And you do the same thing. So you choose your platform based on where you see your ideal customer living the most. The second, decision-making filter for what platform should you put your time into is what medium have you chosen to make content in? I believe there are 4 mediums: video, audio, written, and then photographic. Okay. So if you're going to do audio, for example, okay, what platforms prefer audio? If you're going to do video, you got your choice of everything, right? If you're doing written, you're probably not going to attack YouTube right away. You're probably going to go after Substack and LinkedIn, X, Threads, things like that, right? And so I think it's really figuring out where is my ideal customer spending the majority of the time and what platforms will utilize the medium that I'm creating content in the best. That's how I like to decide. And actually, I want to add something. What's funny is that's my long-term goal. What I'm doing in the short term is I'm actually literally right now through the process of honing more in on making it very clear. We work with personal brands at Ralston. I, over the next couple of years, will take on my own little opportunities that come for like CPG brands, legacy brands that I really want to work with, things like that. But I'm going to treat those more like side projects that I'll do in addition to what my main thing is. Because I'm trying to build a business and I have employees. So I got to build a business that is sustainable. And I want to branch off and take on more than personal brands. But I'm known for personal brands. So that's what I'm going to double down on here in my day job. And in my side time, I'll start dabbling in that. And finding out, Jonathan, do I even like that? Like, I say that's what I want, but maybe all I want is to work with whoever I want, whenever I want in a personal brand capacity. I don't know. And so in my side time, I will use that to dabble and find out what I like, what I don't like, what I'm good at and not good at. And then I'll double down or throw it to the side.
Amazing. Caleb, this has been a lot of fun. This is super rad. Thank you for speaking to my audience. And I'm really excited and I'm really grateful that you took the time. These nuggets that you've dropped here, like there are direct corollaries with everything that you've said to what we're doing in the venue space. And the venue space needs to kind of like elevate, I think, because we have the unique advantage of having this very narrow focused audience. Like our audience stays roughly the same age, more or less. You know, we know like there's a lot of things that are not, there are a lot of constraints and limits around our audiences that when you're looking at a personal brand, I mean, you could have someone who loves Gary Vaynerchuk, who is obsessed with, you know, a set of things over here. And then also another audience is completely different over here. How do you target those guys? You got to have this wide net. It's a little bit tighter. in the venue space. And so we've got a real opportunity. And I just appreciate you speaking to that and helping us level up. This has been awesome.
I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Hey there, pardon the interruption. I wanted to take a minute and share about Common Sense Events and the consulting and management services we provide. Common Sense Events has been a venue management company that professionally manages and operates venues all over the United States for the last 5 years, and we've booked hundreds and hundreds of weddings. We've spent thousands and thousands of dollars on Google ads and Facebook ads per year, and we would love to help serve you at your venue if you're considering a new model of venue management. Now, this is perfect if you own or operate a venue and you're just looking to kind of have it be more of a passive investment for you, more of a real estate play rather than an active business that you run, or if you're a real estate investor and you're looking to purchase a piece of land but don't really know how you're going to manage it, that's where our team comes in. We do everything from the marketing, the sales, the operations, and we have teams in place that we hire locally to help you with all of those things. We manage those teams, we pay for the taxes, we do everything from setting up tables and chairs all the way to the final review of the wedding. So if that sounds interesting to you, we would love to chat with you. You can reach us at venues@cseventservices.com, and you can also just reach out on the podcast. You can send us a DM on Instagram, or even just click the link in the description of this video or podcast. Thank you so much. Now back to the show.